Rich soil always appreciates good care, so it can provide miraculous natural gifts to the farmer. However, James Bristol, a farmer from Michigan, got something more exciting from the ground. He had a field to grow soybeans, and one day he noticed something sticking out of the ground that looked like an old decayed fence post at first sight. However, the find turned out to be much more amazing. James got an excavator to dig deeper and was stunned to see a well-preserved skull. These were the bones of a woolly mammoth that lived on the planet about 15,000 years ago. The multi-ton giant was approximately 40 years old when it died. Archaeologists found most of the animal's skeleton, including the almost intact skull with tusks, though they did not find its limbs. Apparently, some hunters separated and took the limbs and put the mammoth's body in storage. It is noteworthy that James exercised his right to keep some of the mammoth remains and gave most of the bones and the skull to a local museum. That was the first discovery. Let's see what's next. A landowner with a plot near Buenos Aires could not even imagine the treasure his ground held inside. While walking around his farm, Jose Nieves discovered a part of an unidentified object in the ground, but it resembled of a dinosaur eggshell. Actually, the reality was much more fascinating. The farmer did not leave it as it was, but decided to dig the relic out. The find turned out to be much bigger than an assumed egg, as it was over 3 feet long. An explanation was offered by paleontologists who stated the object was a shell of a prehistoric animal that existed during the Ice Age, namely a young glyptodont, a kind of armadillo that inhabited our planet more than 10,000 years ago. The discovery was unique, as the osseous structure was well preserved considering the time since the animal died. This find shows how amazing and mysterious nature is, as it stores numerous valuable puzzles of our past. A famous discovery was made by mere chance. In March 1974, a peasant from Jean went to the mountains to dig a well. To his surprise, he found many ceramic fragments sticking out of the ground instead of water when digging. This became one of the most significant archaeological finds of all time. The terracotta army of Qin Shi Huang, the emperor who united isolated Chinese states into a single empire in the 3rd century BC. The notable historic relic dates back to 210 to 209 BC. Each of 8,000 warriors is a full-size statue made of clay that weighs about 135 kilograms. The weight of each horse is 335 kilograms. The baked material was covered with a special organic substance and painted. The innumerable army buried 1.5 kilometers from the emperor's tomb instead of real warriors is believed to be an ancient way for a leader to affirm his total authority and to gratify his ego in this world and beyond. More than 700,000 people worked for 38 years to build the Qin Shi Huang's mausoleum and create his terracotta army. In the mid-1930s, an extraordinary discovery was made not far from Baghdad. Some pottery jars that looked quite simple at first sight. The Mesopotamian artifacts, which did not draw much attention at first, were later identified as the oldest galvanic cells. In other words, the most ancient electric battery in the world. The battery itself is a 13-centimeter container filled with acid or alkali with a copper cylinder and an iron core inside, a galvanic element that is quite customary for us today. The design of the container is very similar to that of the chemical device intended to generate electric current created in the early 19th century by Alessandro Volta, the pioneer of electricity. Does it mean that ancient people knew about electricity 2,500 years ago? The question remains undetermined. In 1947, Willard F. Gray, an American physicist, made an exact copy of the Baghdad battery using copper sulfate as the electrolyte. The battery produced electric current with a voltage of about 2 volts. In Mythbusters episode 29, copies of the Baghdad battery were tested. Carrie, Grant, and Troy managed to generate 4 volts of current using some lemon juice as the electrolyte.
Holy! We have 4 volts! 3 volts! Oh, yeah!
Days are very much alike for coal miners, especially those working in the rural Siberian Taisul region of Kemerovo Oblast. On September 5, 1969, miners working in a coal mine at a depth of 70 meters saw a 2-meter marble sarcophagus. The artifact was hoisted to the surface of the ground, and the miners, driven by curiosity, opened the cover. There was a mummified body of a young girl inside, flooded with a pinkish liquid. She had white skin and thick chestnut hair. That very evening, special service agents arrived in the village and loaded the sarcophagus into a helicopter. The discovery was named Taisul Princess. Scientists were stunned. The body taken out of the liquid started browning rapidly, but was restored to its original color when placed back into the sarcophagus without any signs of decay. It turned out to be impossible to determine the production technique and the content of the liquid filling the coffin. It is reasonable to assume that the girl belonged to a civilization that was much more highly developed than ours. However, there is no reference to the mysterious Taisul Princess in scientific publications or news feeds. There are no authentic video materials to prove this exceptional discovery.